Daddy, that waitress looks like Mom, look, Ethan murmured, tugging on his father's sleeve. Daniel turned around and froze. Before we move on, please let us know where you're listening from and subscribe to our channel. The restaurant buzzed with life. Glasses chimed, laughter bubbled up, and conversation filled the air. But to Daniel, nothing of it registered now. His eyes were fixed on the woman standing across the room. She bore an uncanny resemblance to Claire. The same figure, identical facial features, even her eyes carried that familiar blend of warmth and sorrow. The waitress noticed his intense gaze and offered a slight smile. "And is everything all right?" she inquired gently. Even her voice struck a familiar chord. Ethan tugged at Daniel's sleeve once more. "Oh, Dad, she really looks like Mom." Daniel was at a loss for words. Memories surged in his mind, of the day he lost Claire, of standing silently by her grave, unable to accept her absence. Yet here she was, not Claire herself, but a mirror image of her. Who exactly was this woman? What peculiar twist of fate was at play? Collecting his thoughts, Daniel looked at the waitress again. He needed answers. "What's your name?" he asked. The woman blinked in mild surprise. "Lauren," she replied calmly. "Is there something I can help you with?" Daniel silently repeated the name, Lauren. But why did she look so remarkably like Claire? "Oh, Dad, can we talk to her?" Ethan asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Daniel nodded in agreement. Noticing their puzzled expressions, Lauren furrowed her brow. "Are you sure everything's all right?" Daniel apologized softly. "And I'm sorry, you look exactly like someone I once loved deeply. It's almost unbelievable." Lauren tilted her head, as though trying to recall something buried in memory. Daniel's heart pounded. This couldn't be mere coincidence. Answers were needed. "So and I have a break coming up," Lauren offered. "If you'd like, we can talk then." Daniel and Ethan exchanged glances. "Yes, please," he replied. They stepped out into the quiet courtyard behind the restaurant. The soft rustling of leaves and distant city sounds filled the silence. Lauren, her curiosity piqued, asked, "So, who do I remind you of?" Taking a deep breath, Daniel responded, "Oh, my wife, Claire. She passed away 2 years ago. And when I saw you, it felt like I was seeing her all over again." Lauren's expression shifted as if the name sparked a memory. She quickly composed herself. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "That must be incredibly painful." Daniel nodded, unable to tear his eyes away from her face. It was so strikingly familiar. "Dad, what if they were sisters?" Ethan whispered. Lauren's eyes widened in surprise. "Sisters?" she echoed. "No, I never had a sister. I grew up in an orphanage." At those words, Daniel tensed. A deep internal tightening took hold. "Where were you born?" he inquired cautiously. "I don't really know," she answered. "My documents only have my name and birth date. My parents remain a mystery." Daniel's mouth went dry. Claire, too, had been an orphan, spending her life searching for family, yet never finding a trace. When Lauren mentioned her birthday, Daniel nearly collapsed. It was the exact same day as Claire's. Lauren noticed the change in his expression. "Are you okay?" Daniel slowly nodded, though inside everything was spinning. 2 women, identical in appearance, matching birthdays, both raised in orphanages, and yet they'd never crossed paths. He recalled how Claire always confessed she felt there was someone out there, a missing piece of her heart. "Lauren, did you ever try to search for your family?" he asked. She gave a sad smile. "I tried, but there were no clues, just an overwhelming void." Daniel wiped his face, his heart racing. He wanted to say so much more, but words failed him. Then Ethan piped up, Could Mom have been her sister?" Lauren flinched. "Was sister?" And Daniel looked at her. She appeared thoughtful, yet there was another glimmer in her eyes, a spark of hope. Finally, he said, Claire might have been your sister." Lauren stared, disbelief and longing mingling in her eyes. "Oh, do you really believe that?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "When we lack hard proof at the moment, but the coincidences are too significant. Same birthday, similar orphanage background." He didn't elaborate on how much they resembled one another, but she understood completely. Gently, Lauren touched her face, as if viewing it anew, not solely as herself, but as a connection to a lost relative. "Aren't there any childhood photos?" Ethan asked timidly. Lauren shook her head. "Not many. The orphanage seldom took pictures, and the few we had were lost during a relocation." Daniel paused thoughtfully. When we have some photos of Claire, perhaps we can compare them? A glimmer of hope lit Lauren's face. Yes, she said quietly. I'd like to see them. Daniel's hands trembled as he retrieved his phone. After scrolling through the gallery, he found an old photograph of Claire during her teenage years. Here, he said, turning the screen toward her. Lauren leaned in, her face paling. She stared at the picture, eyes wide and unblinking. Cess is unbelievable, she whispered. That's me. Daniel gently shook his head. That's Claire. Yet you unmistakably resemble her. You're like 2 drops of water. Ethan grinned. And then, Mom and Lauren really are sisters. Lauren traced the outline of the photo with her fingers, a storm of emotions swirling within her. If this is indeed true, why were we separated? Why did no one ever tell us? Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. One needs certainty. A DNA test will settle everything. Lauren looked at him, fear and hope mingling in her eyes. Then do you truly think it's necessary? Yes, he replied softly. When you deserve the truth. After a long pause, she agreed. All right, I'm willing to try. Ethan clapped his hands excitedly. Yay! That means I might have another aunt. Lauren managed to smile for him, yet her eyes remained clouded with uncertainty. What if all these indications were mistaken? As if sensing her unease, Daniel said gently, no matter what the results reveal, we're all here for you. They agreed to meet the following day for the test. That night, Lauren lay awake, her thoughts in turmoil. What if she had been wandering through life, unaware of the half of her soul that was missing? The next morning, Daniel and Ethan arrived. Daniel carried a white envelope containing the lab referral. Are you ready? He asked softly. Lauren nodded, though her emotions roiled like a tempest within. The lab was quiet and sterile, imbued with a faint scent of antiseptic. Lauren's heart pounded, yet Daniel's calm presence steadied her. The test was swift. Now all they could do was wait. To distract themselves from the tension, Daniel suggested a nearby cafe. They moved to the cozy spot. Ethan, brimming with energy, fidgeted with the menu. Lauren watched him, a small smile forming inside. Yesterday she had been alone. Today, she might have a nephew. She glanced at Daniel, who too seemed lost in thought. No matter what transpired, their lives had already transformed. The days dragged by slowly. Lauren checked her phone repeatedly, though she knew it was too early, and Daniel did the same, hiding his anxious anticipation from Ethan. Then, one evening, as Lauren was finishing her shift, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel, and the results are in. Her heart stilled for a moment, then began racing once more. She called him immediately. And I can come pick you up, Daniel offered in a tense yet composed tone. And I'm at the restaurant, she replied. 15 minutes later, Daniel's car pulled up. Lauren climbed in, seated beside him, and noticed the white envelope in his hands. Her fingers tightened into fists. Daniel met her gaze silently for a brief moment, then extended the envelope toward her. Would you prefer to open it, or shall I tell you? Lauren swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on his. Oh, tell me, she whispered. Daniel's voice softened as he spoke. Oh, your sisters. Lauren pressed her hand to her mouth, her breath catching in shock. A torrent of emotion flooded her. She had never truly been alone. Never had she known that she had a sister all along. Never experienced a hug, never heard her voice. Tears streamed down her cheeks unheeded. Gently, Daniel took her hand, steady and warm. Lauren's eyes slowly opened, meeting his gaze as she realized she had discovered not just a sister, but a family. Looking down at the envelope with trembling hands, she murmured, "Sister." The word felt both achingly familiar and entirely new, as she had never uttered it aloud before. Ethan, seated quietly in the back, observed without question, aware of the significance of the moment. At last, Lauren opened the envelope. Her eyes quickly scanned the lines that confirmed what had already been spoken. After carefully placing the paper back into her bag, she looked up at Daniel. I had no idea, she confessed. He never even knew she existed. And now, it seems it's too late. Daniel met her steady gaze. Chill, Claire always believed there was someone out there. She was always searching, even if she didn't know exactly for whom. Lauren wept. She was seeking me, yet never found me. And yet you found us, Daniel replied softly. When you're not alone any longer. Ethan reached forward and gently laid his small hand over hers. And now you're with us, Aunt Lauren. Lauren managed a laugh through her tears. His words shattered her sorrow like sunlight piercing through dark clouds. She was no longer isolated. She had a family. Slowly closing her eyes to let the moment sink in, she realized her life had divided into two parts, before and after, and in that after lay a promising new beginning. Ethan cheerfully declared, "So Aunt Lauren is going to stay with us forever now." Said Lauren smiled at him, her heart swelling with warmth. Forever, she promised, to him, to Daniel, and to herself. With that, Daniel started the car, and they drove through an evening city painted in soft, fading light. Lauren gazed out the window, her thoughts drifting back to Claire, her voice, her laughter, her very presence. She pictured countless moments that might have been, had they found each other earlier. "I'll take you to Claire's home," Daniel said gently. "Everything is just as she left it, her belongings, her books, her photographs." Lauren's throat tightened. "I want to see them," she whispered. Ethan nodded eagerly. "When we have Mom's albums, you'll get a glimpse of who she was." When they reached the house, Daniel paused at the door, as if steeling himself for the flood of memories inside. Lauren stepped over the threshold and inhaled deeply. A gentle scent lingered in the air, Claire's perfume. Daniel guided her to the living room, retrieved a photo album from the shelf, and handed it over. Lauren opened it slowly, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the pages. There was Claire, smiling as a child, radiant on her wedding day, cradling Ethan in her arms. Looking at the photos, Lauren realized she hadn't lost a sister. She had simply found her. Within those images, in the cherished memories, and in this newfound family, Claire continued to live on. She kept turning the pages, pausing to absorb every smile, every captured glance. Daniel sat quietly beside her, fully understanding that this album was more than mere photographs. It was a bridge connecting Lauren to the sister she never knew. Ethan nestled against her. "Mom was always looking for you. If she'd known, she'd never have let you be alone." Tears welled in Lauren's eyes as she embraced the boy gently, then turned toward Daniel. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for accepting me," she whispered. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "We're family now, always." She nodded, then returned to the photos. They were no longer just images. Each one evoked a feeling, a remembrance, a piece of her soul. She could finally begin to mend the emptiness within. The past was unchangeable, but the future was hers now, with them. That evening, Lauren stayed with Daniel and Ethan. They shared stories of Claire, shedding tears and laughter alike. With every shared moment, Lauren felt herself increasingly at home. When it was time to part, Daniel said softly, "You don't have to leave, Lauren. You're one of us now. This is your home too." Lauren looked first at him, then at Ethan, who was dozing against her shoulder. A shiver traveled down her spine, not from fear, but from a deep, resonant certainty. She smiled and nodded. "I'll stay." Ethan wrapped his arms around her as Daniel simply nodded, understanding that everything had finally fallen into place. Lauren was no longer alone. She had a family, and ahead of her stretched a new life, one filled with love, warmth, and the comforting promise of a place to call home. Thank you for listening to Storyline Narratives.